In the year 2029, the once bustling city of Los Angeles is now dead and silent, with debris spreading everywhere and human skeletons scattered around. Humans developed the Skynet system, which became self-aware on 1997. As a result, it initiated a nuclear war against humanity that had never been seen before, which directly resulted in the deaths of 3 billion people and brought mankind one step closer to extinction. Judgment Day was the name given to this day by those who survived the war, and ever since then, robots have taken over the world rather than humans. As led by Connor, the survivors are rising up against the brutal robots and nearing their goal. In an effort to find a solution to this significant issue, Skynet dispatches the T-800 to the year 1984 in an attempt to kill Connor's mother, but it is unsuccessful. This time, both Skynet and the Resistance deployed their Terminators simultaneously. In the same way that he did before, T-800 appears naked on the streets of Los Angeles in the year 1995. He looks around and begins to search for targets. He was able to give his attention to the motorcycle that was parked outside of the bar. The sudden appearance of a muscular man who was naked in the bar caused everyone to look around immediately. After going through the system, he was finally able to locate a man who had a body type that was similar to his own. The request made by T-800 caused the crowd to laugh. Then the uncle displayed a look of disdain and tried to burn the past with a cigar. Surprisingly, the person on the other side did not even frown, but instead twisted his own arm. Other patrons in the bar noticed this and hurried to assist, but the outcome was predictable in a short period of time, and it was all by T-800 down. The only thing the uncle could do was gently hand over his motorcycle and leather jacket. Not only were the clothes still in excellent condition, but there seemed to be a missing element. At this juncture, an uncle emerged to retrieve the equipment, guns, and sunglasses. Within a few minutes, a night shift police officer working in an abandoned factory discovered an abnormal current interference at the same time. They discovered that the interference was an iron fence that had fused together to form a large circle. The small person's life had taken a turn for the worse, leaving him slightly perplexed. This person is the most recent model that Skynet has dispatched to carry out the assassination of Connor. His name is Terminator T-1000. At the time, Connor was only 10 years old and a very stubborn boy. He disregarded the reprimands from his foster mother, and even his foster father received the same treatment. The police detained him numerous times at a young age, and he became a rebellious teenager. T-1000 uncovered Connor's information and address via the police department's van's computer system. He was able to get $300 in his possession in a short amount of time after he set his sights on a cash machine today. He achieved this by utilizing a skillful maneuver. Specifically, his mother, named Sarah, was the one who instructed him in this particular skill. If Connor is to be believed, his mother is a complete and utter nutcase. She consistently asserted that a nuclear war would occur in the future, that Terminator robots would exterminate all humans, and that she had recently blown up a company, leading to her placement in a mental hospital. This crazy woman is dangerous and has serious violent tendencies according to Dr. Silberman, so he specifically instructed his staff to give her special care. If she continues to disobey, she will face beatings. On the other hand, T-1000 attended the residence of Connor's parents while posing as a law enforcement officer. It is not immediately apparent that this is a robot, in contrast to the previous T-800 version, which had a more natural and rich expression. Within a few words, the adoptive parents believed that Connor was in danger outside, so they allowed him to get a picture of Connor. In the process of riding the motorcycle all over the street, T-800 was fortunate enough to spot their trail, and T-1000 inquired about it while carrying the photograph. He came across Connor's friend, who believed that he had just stolen the money and reported it to the authorities. As a result, he advised Connor to flee the scene for his own safety. At the end of the corridor, a powerful person showed up while wearing a black leather jacket, sunglasses, and a gun. Connor realized that this man was coming to his rescue, and he used his body to block the bullet for himself. This made the situation even more unpleasant. This can only temporarily delay the time that T-1000 is made of liquid metal, so the gunfire does not work, and indeed the crater on his body immediately recovered as it had before. Connor made the most of the opportunity to ride away on his motorcycle, but naturally, T-1000 will not let this wonderful opportunity slip through his fingers behind the scenes during the pursuit. Connor, who was resourceful, drove the motorcycle into a dry drainage canal. He did not anticipate that the crazy T-1000 would actually drive the truck directly down the canal. The T-800 trailed closely behind, firing at the truck from a height. When T-800 saw that Connor was about to catch up, he jumped down from a high place. He pulled Connor to his motorcycle, pulled out a gun and a dazzling change of ammunition, turned around, and shot the truck tires on the way down. Instantaneously, the truck lost its bearings, collided with the bridge head-on, and exploded. They saw that T-1000 did not appear, and they drove the motorcycle onward. But the silver-white liquid robot is still alive, and he continues to search Connor. After arriving at a secure location, Connor realized that the irrational mother had been telling the truth about everything, and the robot that was standing in front of him was the future that Connor had sent to make sure he was safe. In order to get away from the liquid metal robots, T-800 decided to take Connor with them and flee the city. Connor was required to inform his adoptive parents before he left town, despite the fact that he did not like them for some reason. The foster mother, who on the other end of the phone is very kind, which was something that had never happened before. Connor experienced a sense that something was wrong. When T-800 picked up the phone, he imitated Connor's voice. The liquid metal robot has the uncanny ability to mimic and can transform into any object of the same size that he touched. He has been known to intentionally say the wrong name of the family dog, but the other party is unaware of this knowledge. As a result, the adoptive parents have faced significant challenges. There was a murder that took place at Connor's residence. Sarah was located by the police, and the shopping mall surveillance cameras captured photos similar to those of the man murdered at the police station 11 years earlier. Despite the fact that Sarah was completely still and aware that the Terminator had returned, she secretly took away the pin. The realization that his mother might be in danger prompts Connor to make an effort to rescue her. This proposition is not acceptable to T-800 because he believes that the T-1000 is eagerly awaiting Connor to arrive at his residence. However, Connor's word holds ultimate authority, and he must adhere to it. Connor also asks him to swear that he will not cause harm to human beings. In order to free herself from the handcuffs, Sarah spit the pin out of her mouth once she returns to the room. T-1000 disguised himself as a member of the police and sneaked into the mental hospital. He sneaks inside the mental hospital while Sarah is escaping from the room, knocking out the security guard. While the doorman was working to buy coffee, he quietly transformed into the doorman and then poked the doorman directly with his finger. Sarah enters Dr. Silberman's office covertly, injects a highly toxic herbicide into a syringe, and then holds the doctor as a hostage in anticipation of her escape. There was a sudden appearance of T-800 when Sarah arrived at the elevator, and she immediately became terrified, as if she had witnessed a ghost. The security personnel at the hospital took advantage of the opportunity to rush up to her. To her surprise, the Terminator assisted himself in defeating the group of people. While T-800 was retreating to elevator and shooting T-1000, the elevator door suddenly broke open. Unexpectedly, T-800 did not hesitate to shoot him in the face and opened his head, but this only resulted in a momentary delay of a certain amount of time. Soon he jumped into the elevator shaft, and the T-800 across the elevator began to shoot. They made their way out of the hospital and managed to seize a police car that was on the verge of escape. However, the T-1000 continued to pursue, battling against the gunfire. He turned his hands into hooks and hooked them to the car. His skill with the gun, coupled with its power, caused his hook to break, momentarily disorienting him. The broken hook was still shaking, which makes Connor scared and threw it away. Sarah reprimanded her son while they were in the car, telling him that he should not put his life in danger for her, because Connor's life is too important, and that he also bears responsibility for the future of everybody. They stopped at a gas station that was empty and took a brief break on their way there. Sarah extracted a large number of bullets from T-800. Connor was informed by T-800 that his central processing unit contained a neural network that was capable of learning functions, including human emotions. Following the removal of the processor, T-800 remained in its original position and did not move. Sarah grabbed a hammer in order to smash the chip before the Terminator left an indelible mark on her image. By using the tone of a future leader, Connor was able to stop her, and with that, the T-800 opened the learning mode simultaneously. They have no choice but to get out of the city as quickly as they can. It is Connor's intention to teach T-800 some human emotions and how humans smile while they are in the car so that he can appear more human. Following the completion of facial capture, T-800 displayed an extremely awkward smile for the very first time. Dr. Dyson, the director of Cybertron Systems, was the primary person in charge of this project. He was the one who developed the revolutionary processor. Cybertron developed into the most important provider of computer systems for the military in just 3 years. It is possible to exercise command over anything from unmanned warplanes to nuclear bombs of any kind. Skynet has been learning at a geometric rate ever since 1997, when the fund proposal to build Skynet was approved. Eventually, it will experience consciousness. Ultimately, a devastating blow turned the United States of America's homeland into a scorched land. They arrive at the border between the United States and Mexico, where Sarah takes them to see her longtime friend named Enrique. The underground warehouse includes a wide variety of firearms, including a Gatling machine gun, and Connor's smile appears to be much more natural this time around. This is the place where Connor spent his childhood. At the same time that Sarah observed Connor and T-800 getting along so well, she had the impression that this robot was more like a father. And no matter what happens in the future, he will never leave Connor's side, even if it means sacrificing his life altogether. According to Sarah, it is possible to alter one's destiny. After taking this into consideration, she drove off by herself with all of her weapons and equipment. Connor was immediately aware of the fact that her mother was planning to murder Dyson after she saw the words that she had carved into the table. Sarah arrives outside Dyson's house and makes preparations to shoot him in the head. However, his son's remote control car saves his life and prevents Sarah from carrying out her plan. After breaking into the house, Sarah proceeded to shoot him to death. At that precise moment, Connor arrived in time and checked to make sure that the bullet had only pierced Dyson's shoulder and was not a life-threatening injury. The Terminator used the knife to cut open the skin, revealing a metal skeleton with the intention of frightening the Dyson couple. Dyson is unsure of what he has done wrong. Following that, the Terminator informed them of what would occur in the future. Dyson listened to what the Terminator had to say and told them that he would halt all research projects. Dyson also agreed to take them to the laboratory in order to destroy everything. Following that, Dyson made some shocking statements. It turns out that all of their research is based on the fact that the first generation of the Terminator left a chip, but even though it is only a broken chip, it provided them with a tremendous deal of inspiration regardless. That is to say, the first generation of Terminator does not have the ability to cross back, so they are unable to create a robot with such a high level of sophistication. T-800 and the others came to the company at night and tied the security guard to the toilet. Co-workers quickly realized there was a problem and promptly set off the alarm, discovering Dyson's door card was invalid. After some time had passed, the T-800 retrieved a grenade launcher and utilized it to blow open the door. As soon as they entered the interior, they proceeded to destroy everything in the research room. Dyson then used an axe to personally destroy all of his years of laborious work. Following that, they were busy preparing bombs, getting ready to destroy everything that was located here. While this was going on, the police utilized the entire police force of the city, and the entire institute was encircled by a complete circle. T-800 with a Gatling dragging 40 meters of bullets, ready to knock back the police. Of course, he did not forget Connor's instruction not to kill anyone. While the police were being terrified by a round of gunfire and fled in a panic, Connor and Dyson opened the vault and obtained the robot arm and the chip. During the time that they were retreating, a number of law enforcement officers rushed in. After coming under heavy fire, Dyson was shot multiple times, and he was aware that he could not continue to hold on and instructed the others to leave first. It is his intention to detonate the explosives, and T-800 will then break through the wall in order to rescue Sarah, who is currently trapped. In order to avoid causing harm to innocent people, Dyson waits until the police have evacuated the area before detonating the explosives. Following the violent explosion, the location was completely consumed by flames, and all of the research materials were brought to a complete and utter halt. In spite of the intense fire, T-800 slowly emerged from the smoke. He did not forget Connor's orders, and he only injured the police officers. He then went outside, grabbed a truck, and rushed into the hall to rescue Sarah and her son. The T-1000 also arrived at this time, driving a motorcycle to break the window, then driving directly to the police helicopter, and finally releasing liquid into the aircraft. A fierce firefight ensued between the two parties as the helicopter followed the road and was able to bite the truck. As a result of a rear-end collision that occurred on the spot, Sarah's leg was injured, the T-800 braked with enormous force, and the helicopter was shattered. The T-1000 emerged from the wreckage, grabbed a truck that was full of liquid nitrogen, and rushed toward them. After his car destroyed, T-800 had to borrow someone's car, but it couldn't run and T-1000 caught them. The T-800 instructed Connor to drive and use the grenade launcher on the large truck. Connor drove the vehicle directly into a steel mill. In the event of an emergency, the T-800 jumped in front of the car and fired rapidly. He grabbed the steering wheel and allowed the car to lose control, which ultimately resulted in the tanker flipping over on the ground. The tank ruptured as a result of the violent impact of the tank, which caused a significant amount of liquid nitrogen to flow out of the vehicle. It is worth noting that the minimum temperature of this substance can reach as low as -209 degrees Celsius. When subjected to such a low temperature, a robot made of liquid metal gradually becomes rigid and eventually freezes into an ice sculpture. So T-800 uses this chance to shoot him, and finally T-1000 bursts into pieces. Despite the destruction of the T-1000, the high temperature inside the steel mill slowly melted the ice, causing the liquid metal to converge again. Soon after, he was back on his feet. While he wrestled with T-1000, T-800 allowed Sarah to run. When T-800 had completed a few rounds, his hand became lodged in the gears, and he was unable to move. Sarah fired a shot at T-1000 in order to reassure her son. Having said that, this can only delay the process by a limited amount of time. A finger grazed her shoulder. Despite the fact that he was aware that he was no match for T-800, he still managed to save Sarah for the very first time. He is about to receive one more vicious beating, and his head is in danger of shattering into pieces. The only thing that he wanted at this very moment was to acquire the grenade launcher and to keep fighting for Connor until the very minute. The relentless T-1000 trailing behind him pierced T-800's body with steel bar, catching him off guard. A fading red light appeared in his eyes. A cunning T-1000 impersonated Sarah in both appearance and voice in order to entice Connor to come out of hiding. Meanwhile, the real Sarah appeared from behind and attempted to shoot him with her gun. At that time, it turns out that T-800 activated the backup power supply automatically, pulled out the steel bars that had been inserted into his body, picked up the grenade launcher, and climbed onto the conveyor belt. Once a grenade was fired, T-1000's body almost split in half. It fell headfirst into the hot iron water as it lost its equilibrium, and it eventually melted and vanished as a result of its fall. Following that, the robot arm and chips that had been taken from the laboratory, Connor threw them down. T-800 points to his own head, where there is a chip for the future of humanity, including his own body, which needs to be destroyed together, so that the dark future of humanity can end. This makes Connor cry, but T-800 finally understood why people cry, which is something that robots will never be able to do. T-800 continued to stand on the iron ditch after he had finished saying his goodbyes to Sarah by shaking hands with her. As soon as the switch was turned on, T-800 began to slowly descend until he completely submerged by the iron water, and finally he dies. Click the left screen to continue watching the latest video, or the right screen to watch all videos in one playlist. Thank you for watching and wish you good health.